She's so beautiful and elegant. I wish I was rich and famous.
Hollywood and celebrities have been captivating and mesmerizing Americans for generations now. But what are the generations in their family tree? Let's take a closer look. Wow, comedian and actress Melissa McCarthy is cousins to Playboy model and TV host Jenny McCarthy.
Oh, I love Melissa McCarthy. She's so funny.
Who is married to reality star Donnie Wahlberg, brother of movie star Mark Wahlberg. Rock icon Lenny Kravitz and famous weatherman Al Roker are first cousins.
American Woman. Love that song.
We always knew Beyonce was royalty, but CBS News confirmed it. Queen Bey is the 25th cousin, once removed, of Queen Elizabeth II.
I'm her biggest fan. Ask the Beehive.
Actor Warren Beatty and Shirley MacLaine are brother and sister. Ellen DeGeneres is related to Kate Middleton through a 1500 nobleman Sir Thomas Fairfax. Daughter of actor Jon Voight, Angelina Jolie is a descendant of King Philip II of France, and she is 26 cousins of Queen Elizabeth. Her ex-husband Brad Pitt is related to the royals through King Henry II. King Henry II, the father of King John of England, was a merciless tyrant, famous for starving prisoners to death, levying crippling taxes against the poor, torturing, hanging, and beheading the helpless commoners.
Burning people's eyes out with hot pokers.
Madonna and singer Celine Dion's lineage can be traced back to King Philip II of France. They are cousins with Prince William and Kate. Prince William is a descendant of Vlad the Impaler, who was famous for torturing, impaling, and drinking the blood of his victims.
Slavery, death, and destruction.
Hotel heiress and reality star Paris Hilton is 20th cousins of Queen Elizabeth, which makes her a relative of King Leopold II,
Murdering entire cities.
who enslaved the entire country of the Congo and murdered
Killing people.
between 10 to 15 million people,
Mass raping.
torturing and maiming children and the elderly alike. But why do so many celebrities come from royal families with such a dark and brutal history?
And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed.
Planned Parenthood joins forces with the Satanic Temple.
And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. The dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born.
Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them.
Now, the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. I will put enmity between thee and the woman,
And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
and between thy seed.
These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God.
And her seed.
Throughout history, on every continent, serpent worship has flourished. In the Americas, the Mayans and the Aztecs worshiped a variety of reptilian gods, sea serpents, feathered serpents, and powerful dragons.
The priest class that ruled the Mesoamerican cultures. Toltec, Mayan, Aztec.
The Aztecs credit the plumed serpent Quetzalcoatl with fathering their civilization. In exchange for this gift of knowledge and technology, the Aztec priests would graciously offer tens of thousands of human sacrifices.
They would have the daily sacrifices, and the lower priest, it would sell beneath the pyramid in the market the human flesh.
Huangdi, or the Yellow Emperor, was the first emperor of China. He was said to be the son of a dragon. The Chinese, Koreans, and Japanese speak throughout their history of dragons who possess both physical and non-physical form. The lineage of kings that descend from a race of dragons is often claimed by Asian emperors. When the spirit of the dragon is invoked, human sacrifice is sure to follow. Legendary Mayan story of Kukulkan speaks of serpents of wisdom enlightening the people, but also devouring their children.
Kukulkan by the Maya is depicted in a number of ways. Sometimes he is human, sometimes he's a serpent. Sometimes we see him emanating from a serpent's head.
You are the Grand Dragon of the clan in Georgia?
That's correct.
That's the highest office in Georgia?
That's correct.
The Kukulkan and the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan are invoking the same serpent deity. There are spirits in charge of regional locations. Both of these occult orders have come in contact with the same ancient evil that inhabits the Americas and thrives on human sacrifice.
Calvin Cray, Grand Dragon of Georgia, United Clans of America, Knights of the Ku Klux Klan.
The Klan for the first year or more than a year was simply a group that was a social group, and as a social group, they developed rituals. They developed elaborate mystical rituals that came from fraternity rituals, they came from Masonic rituals.
Albert Pike served as a brigadier general in the Confederate Army. Following the war, Pike was jailed for treason. He was quickly pardoned by fellow Freemason President Andrew Johnson. Among eventually becoming a 33-degree Mason and a top leader of the Ku Klux Klan, Pike was also believed to be a Luciferian. He claimed he was able to summon Lucifer at will as the Grand Master of the Order of the Palladium. Palladism, or traditional Satanism, an ancient Luciferian cult, was then introduced to the inner circle of the Masonic lodges. This influence has flourished into modern-day Freemasonry in the super rites of the upper degrees.
And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, and had cast them to the earth. The dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born.
See Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's high-profile wedding guests. According to Kensington Palace, around 600 people were invited to attend the service at St. George's Chapel, Windsor Castle, followed by the Queen's lunchtime reception at St. George's Hall. The guest list still featured a number of notable attendees. There were many familiar faces, including UK royals, celebrities, and actors who came out to witness the hour-long ceremony. Meghan's famous friends Priyanka Chopra, Serena Williams, and members of the Suits cast were also in attendance. Later in the evening, Prince Charles will host a private reception at Frogmore House for only 200 of Harry and Meghan's closest friends and family. James Corden is reportedly one of the lucky ones to receive an invite to the wedding and both receptions.
Harry and Meghan were married at Windsor Castle. Windsor Castle is located in London.
The London boundary mark is surrounded by dragons, which are the most obvious and visible. If you follow them, they can take you all over the city. This is their story. The dragon boundary marks are cast iron statues of dragons on metal or stone plinths that mark the boundaries of the City of London. The dragons are painted silver with details of their wings and tongue picked out in red. The dragon stands on its 2 rear legs with the right foreleg raised and the left foreleg holding a shield which bears the City of London's coat of arms, painted in red and white. The design is based on 2 large dragon sculptures 7 feet high, which were mounted above the entrance to the coal exchange on Lower Thames Street. Those cast iron dragons were erected as dragon boundary marks in October 1963 in Temple Gardens on Victoria Embankment.
Dragons, gargoyles, serpent mounds, pyramids, and obelisks are high places marking the perimeter of satanic strongholds.
Temple Bar Dragon is a different breed to the other dragons. It stands guard over the boundary between the City of London and the City of Westminster. The Temple Bar Dragon looks rather more fierce than the others. It is the tallest of all the dragons and has a very gothic look to it. Unlike the other boundary dragon, it is black and not silver. There are 2 replicas of the Coal Exchange Dragon at the south end of London Bridge, 2 on High Holborn, and single replicas on Aldgate High Street, Bishopsgate, Moorgate, Aldersgate Street, Farringdon Street, and at the south end of Blackfriars Bridge. At the heart of London are 2 cities, the City of London and the City of Westminster. The City of London is the ancient part of London that was once known as the Roman city of Londinium.
The dragon, that old serpent which is the devil and Satan. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the 4 quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea.
Gog and Magog are in the 4 corners of the earth.
That Donald Trump has played so far. He's a billionaire businessman and property mogul.
A front runner in the race to be the next US president.
Many admire him for his straight talking.
And now he's apparently been made a Knight of the Round Table in Tintagel and can call himself Sir. Heidi Davey reports.
Well, as the legend goes here in Tintagel, only the best knights in King Arthur's kingdom are invited to sit at the prestigious Round Table. It's an honour bestowed on only a few, and Donald Trump has now been added to that list. The question is, though, why?
So from henceforth, Donald Trump will be known at Camelot Castle as Sir Donald Trump of Camelot.
He's really not joking, by the way, as the process for selection is extremely serious here in North Cornwall.
We do it very, very rarely, and we do it. It is a great honour because the Noble Order of Camelot Castle is something that we do take very, very seriously. We have granted knighthoods previously. Some of them obviously are private for obvious reasons. I think he is one of the most noble men today in the world, and I think what he is doing is something that will go down in history, and I think King Arthur would be proud.
It is still related to the Welsh nation and its heritage, and that I think is the key. You know, Arthur is part of our heritage.
There is so much evidence for placing him in southeast Wales. It really is amazing that this idea hasn't been accepted.
Well, I've never had any doubts that Arthur was a Welshman.
And he appears fundamentally in the core of the lineage literature of royalty. Our Arthur now becomes the source by which the kings of England claim their right to rule.
During the reign of Uther Pendragon, in the wake of the dragon-shaped star, Merlin foretold the coming of Arthur, a great warrior king who would defend his country and faith from foreign invaders and natural disasters. From the old Roman order that had withered and died, Arthur would sow the seeds of a nation that was to become Great Britain. Today, Arthur's name lives on, but did he ever really exist? Alan Wilson and Baron Blackett have gone further than any other researchers in establishing the facts behind the legend. Since 1977, they have been re-evaluating the most ancient British texts. Not only have they identified 2 Arthurs, but they've also found physical evidence to support their claims. The book that really brought Arthur to the attention of the world was The History of the Kings of Britain, written in 1135 by Geoffrey of Monmouth. Arthur's name had been recorded before, but it was this work that portrayed him as a knightly king.
The problem immediately was that he proclaimed an Arthur who fought the Romans and an Arthur who fought and defeated the Saxons and others. The immediate problem is that you have a 200 and maybe 25 or 250-year-old king. This was pointed out by Polydore Virgil, the historian for Henry VIII of the 6 wives, and said this is impossible that you've got a 250-year-old king here. He can't fight the Romans and the Saxons. This was immediately used to say, oh, this history is false. But the obvious answer is that there are two King Arthurs. And there are two. And the man who fought the Romans did so in 383 to 88, and is very clearly recorded, and very well recorded, authenticated. And the man who fought the Saxons in the 6th century is a 6th generation direct descendant in the male line, and he is Arthur II.
See, all of these legends come from real places.
When Edward I claimed the throne of Scotland, among other documents which his learned clerks consulted was the prophecy of Merlin in Geoffrey of Monmouth's history.
Here is an example of Geoffrey's portentous-sounding prophecies. A giant, snow-white in colour and gleaming bright, will beget a people which is radiant. Merlin's first appearance at the time of Vortigern, a chieftain in the days after the Romans left. As a usurping leader of the Britons, Vortigern had made the fatal mistake of inviting Saxon mercenaries into the country as auxiliary troops against an alliance of enemies from the north. Predictably, the Saxons didn't just do the job they had been hired for. They stayed on and settled more and more of their people on the lands they had been paid to defend. Finally, Vortigern lost control of them as they went on a rampage, massacring the British and despoiling the country. So, Vortigern himself had to flee to the safety of the mountains of northwest Wales. His magicians advised him to build a strong fortress, but the wall was no sooner built than it collapsed each night. In the face of this bad omen, the magicians prescribed the blood of a boy without a father to be sprinkled on the foundation stones. In nearby Carmarthen, they found the young Merlin, whose mother was the daughter of the king of the Welsh kingdom of Dyfed. She had been impregnated by an incubus demon while living with the nuns at a local convent. So, Merlin had no earthly father, which qualified him for the role of sacrificial victim. The strange circumstances of his conception meant that he was also a wonder child, product of a union between the earthly and the supernatural, and his powers were soon demonstrated before Vortigern. Merlin demonstrated the shortcomings of the local magicians by correctly identifying the true reason for the collapsing walls, an underground pool in which lay two dragons, one red, the other white, sealed in stone. Once the pool was drained, the dragons fought, and, as they struggled for supremacy, a spirit of prophecy took hold of Merlin. Under its influence, he uttered many strange sayings. These were the Prophetiae Merlini that Geoffrey had put in his first book. Merlin explained the red dragon symbolized the Britons, and the white one was their enemy, the Saxons. The white dragon would prevail for a while, but ultimately the red dragon would throw it back across the sea it came from. He foresaw the rise of a leader who would hold back the invaders for a time, meaning Arthur, not yet born at that point. And lastly, after many cryptic predictions, he warned Vortigern that the rightful princes, Aurelius and Uther, exiled offspring of the last Roman ruler, Constantine, were returning to claim back the kingdom and his life. This act of violence is commemorated at Dinas Emrys, or the Ambrosius Fort near Bed Gelert in North Wales. After establishing his credentials, Merlin helped the new king Aurelius to put up a fitting memorial over the mass grave of the murdered British leaders. For this, he travelled to Ireland, where there stood a huge circle of standing stones raised by giants. Using secret arts, Merlin dismantled the circle and had the stones shipped to Britain. Merlin went on to interpret the appearance of a comet in the form of a fiery dragon as heralding the death of Aurelius, the ascendancy of Uther, and the coming of King Arthur. He then played his well-known leading part in bringing about Arthur's conception by helping Uther Pendragon to deceive the wife of the Duke of Cornwall into sleeping with him at the fortress of Tintagel.
The Duke of Cornwall is away fighting Uther's forces somewhere else in Cornwall, and Uther is changed by Merlin magically into the shape of Gorlois, the Duke of Cornwall. Gets into Tintagel and lies one night with the Duchess, and then goes away. So she never knows that it wasn't her own husband, and that night was conceived the infant Arthur. There's no question in my mind but that this reflects the theme found over and over again in ancient Celtic mythology, whereby a king is believed to be the son of a god, or the god, Lug, who sleeps with the queen on the night that the new king is conceived. And this was a matter of pride, that kings were each the son of the god.
Recently, it was, I don't remember how many days ago it was, but Donald Trump was knighted, what's called the Knights of the Round Table in England. And only few people ever received this quote-unquote honor. But what I found was interesting is when I looked at the emblem, this secret society or this group of individuals that are brought to this round table. And this emblem is a picture of a cross with a round table with a red dragon. Now, what does the scripture say about the red dragon, people? The emblem of the knights of the round table, worn round the necks of all the knights, was given to them by King Arthur as part of the ceremony of their being made a knight. The red dragon of King Arthur represented their alliance to the king. The round table was illustrative of the eternity of God, the equality, unity, and comradeship of the order, and singleness of purpose of all the knights. Now, it says here that the red dragon represents the alliance to the king. Well, who's the king?
Who is the king? In the case of most U.S. presidents who descend from European royal families, the answer is simple. But in Trump's case, even though he too descends from a royal bloodline, his allegiance seems to lie elsewhere. The papacy and the Jesuit order also invoke the occult power of the serpent. As the so-called Vicar of Christ, the Pope claims authority as King of Kings in Christ's absence. The Pope's deification of the serpent is in full display through the architecture of Paul VI's Hall.
You look at the bloodlines of the American presidents.
All men are created equal. Indeed, Brother Washington. All Freemasons meet as equals, and we have an opportunity to create a nation in the very essence of Masonic morality.
It is a known fact that all the presidents that have, reigned in the United States have all been related.
Great idea if we wore our Masonic regalia when we're putting in place the foundation stone for the Capitol building.
All 44 U.S. presidents have carried European royal bloodlines.
Say regalia. Yes. Well, it would be wonderfully symbolic, don't you think?
You'll be wanting to put the all-seeing eye on our banknotes next.
You think I'm taking it a bit far?
Please don't ask me questions like that, Brother Franklin. You know I cannot tell a lie.
34 have been genetic descendants of just one person, Charlemagne, the brutal 8th century king of the Franks.
You know, I do agree with you, though, the foundation stone of our new nation built on all those principles that we hold dear, perfect in its parts and honorable to the builder.
And the plans for our new capital city already have a very Masonic feel to them, yeah.
Now, that's a fascinating story, because Charlemagne is, of course, the one who was crowned emperor of the Roman Empire, the new Roman Empire, and the Pope was crowning him.
Well, hello, Brother Hiram.
Brother Benjamin.
And who's your friend?
Oh, this is Mr. Avney, our candidate for initiation into the order. I'm giving him a little introduction into some of our mysteries.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Oh, hey, what a privilege to be shown round by Hiram himself.
Yes, I'm learning a great deal.
And these two gentlemen are founding an entire nation built on our principles.
We have great promises for our new nation. You know, I wonder if other presidents after me will also be Freemasons.
Well, of course. I mean, well, I just sort of assumed.
I'm afraid not, Ben. But many will be. And Freemasonry will become embedded in the American culture. And the eye will appear on the banknotes.
Oh, God.
As will your face.
Oh, God.
And in years to come, these principles will be honored with a gift from your French brethren.
Although there have been stories recorded of dragons taking on forms of many other creatures, the most commonly recurring theme is the shapeshift from dragon to human or from human to dragon, a theme that has been recorded throughout history and is an ability which seems to be particularly associated with royalty and dragon bloodlines, and I will go on to explore this theme when we climb into some more mythological stories.
See, all of these legends come from real places.
The Queen's referred to dark forces at work in this country, of which we know nothing. And similarly, the doomed Diana thought, rightly or wrongly, that assorted agents of darkness were trying to kill her.
Known as corpse medicine, it was popular amongst British royalty, Queen Elizabeth's predecessors.
Eating the executed. Physicians, scholars, and noblemen generally believed in the healing power of death. It was assumed that all organisms had a predetermined lifespan. Even someone who had been executed obviously had some life that should have been left over, so demand for the lifeblood and body of the executed was quite high.
William III and Queen Mary both took potions containing human skull.
Charles II enjoyed these potions so much that he bought the recipe and mixed his own. These remedies were made using body parts supplied from an illegal grave robbing industry and blood freshly drank from the executed.
Like her husband, Prince Philip, Queen Elizabeth came from a royal family of name changers to cover up their German identity. Before 1917, the British royals bore the German name of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, which was changed to the more British-sounding name of Windsor. The Queen and Philip are both the great-great-grandchildren of Queen Victoria, who married her German first cousin. That makes Elizabeth and Philip inbred kissing cousins.
Eating from solid gold plates.
Medical cannibalism. Both Queen Mary II and her uncle, King Charles II, both took distilled human skull on their deathbeds in 1698 and 1685. But again, they did this as late as even 100 years after. Cannibalism was not only found in the New World, as often believed, but also in Europe.
In Voodoo, there's the cult of the python. Its practitioners offer the sacrifice of blood to quench the serpent's thirst.
Wherefore ye be witnesses unto yourselves that ye are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill ye up, then, the measure of your fathers. Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can ye escape the damnation of hell?
In the event that I'm reincarnated, Philip has said, I would like to return as a deadly virus, thinking his high-handed Carl would solve overpopulation.
Planned Parenthood joins forces with the Satanic Temple in their attacks against Missouri's abortion law.
I don't dislike babies, though I think very young ones rather disgusting, said Queen Victoria.
Shortly after his cousin, Charles Darwin, published his Origin of Species, Galton became fascinated with the idea that the survival of the fittest did not just take place between species, but within them. In order to confirm their preconceived notions of their own self-worth, Galton and his friends started a new field of inquiry called eugenics. Unsurprisingly, it concluded that the rich and powerful were rich and powerful because they were genetically superior, and it offered a simple solution for improving the lot of humanity. Make sure that the affluent upper classes breed as much as possible, preferably within their own families, in order to preserve their superior stock. And make sure the lower classes breed as little as possible. The British Eugenics Society, for one, merely changed its name to the Galton Institute. The American Eugenics Society morphed into the Population Council, a group set up by John D. Rockefeller III, where members continued to advocate the very same policies for reducing the population of third world countries as they always had. Only now they did so in the name of fighting overpopulation rather than fighting bad genes. He also went on to co-found the World Wildlife Fund with Nazi SS officer Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands. Within a generation, science was once again ready to tell us why the only way to save humanity was to stop people from breeding.
In my lifetime, we have seen global wildlife populations decline by over half. Africa's rapidly growing human population is predicted to more than double by 2050, a staggering increase of 3.5 million more people per month. Urbanization, infrastructure, development, cultivation, all good things in themselves. But they will have a terrible impact unless we begin to plan and to take measures now.
A woman says her rights were violated when she was required by law to wait 3 days to have an abortion. And a religious organization is supporting her. That organization is called the Satanic Temple.
Has Donald Trump sworn his allegiance to the Great Red Dragon?
The rapper tweeting, "You don't have to agree with Trump, but the mob can't make me not love him. We are both dragon energy. He is my brother."
I am Daenerys Stormborn, of House Targaryen, of the blood of old Valyria. I am the dragon's daughter. The dragon's daughter. The dragon's daughter.
It sounds like there's a feeling that Meghan is welcome as fresh blood, if you like.
Meghan Markle is the latest American to marry into the British monarchy. But did you know the 36-year-old already has royalty in her blood?
I think that's everyone's first question is, how is she related to royalty?
We do have a president who seems to be pretty blatantly doing favors for his next of kin.
There's nothing to do with nepotism, but I want to tell you, the people that know that Ivanka would be dynamite.
Through a lot of research, navigating through old documents, from marriage certificates to obituaries, going back 24 generations, she discovered Meghan is related to Edward III, the former King of England, and the nobleman Roger Mortimer.
Though the trainee royal's late mother said she was sorry her sons were, in her words, so keen on killing. To Diana, they'd grown into a couple of little thugs who'd boast to classmates of granny's castles. "When I'm king," Prince William would say when thwarted, "I'm going to send my knights around to kill you. If you give me a hard time," he told a schoolboy opponent, "I'll get my dad to cut your head off." As if aware of some entitlement to adopt the serial killer Henry VIII as a murderous role model. They are never happier than when they have a gun in their hands, their mother noted, though warning them not to be photographed with guns. "I told them," she said, "royal killing sprees start young." Prince William would kill his first stag on his grandmother's Berkhold estate, aged 14, after which the head stalker, Sandy Masson, bloodied the boy in an initiation rite that followed the royal slaughter. Notably, when Trinidad became a dominion in 1962, a UK court was retained for its appeals, and the Queen herself signs off the court's business. Though Britain would shortly abolish capital punishment, Trinidad's government maintained the practice, and the anomaly meant that the Queen approved death warrants referred to her from this judicial committee. Thus it is the case in the Caribbean, where Elizabeth is Queen, in Belize, the Bahamas, Barbados, St. Lucia, and Jamaica, and in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Christopher and Nevis, that a royal pen wields terminal power on death row. Thus, as a direct result, on the 16th of May 1975, in Royal Jail, Port of Spain, the prison superintendent arrived at a cell door at dawn, and he handed Michael de Freitas, the prisoner waiting inside, the dismissal of his last appeal, signed Elizabeth R. Then he'd say, with a fatalistic grin, "So, now I'm in a cell in her royal jail, and now it's her powerful royal noose that sends me to her kingdom come. Can you dig it?" Michael was hooded, then led to the gallows under armed guard, and, while there's no death penalty in her own country, Michael was hanged by the neck by royal command until Michael X, also known as Abdul Malik, was pronounced dead. His death warrant had been signed by the Queen on the 14th of May, 1975. Michael was hanged, then drawn, meaning he was left to swing, it being the royal jail's colonial tradition.
Christ hath redeemed us for the curse of the law, being made a curse for us. For it is written, Cursed is every one that hangeth on a tree.
On the 6th of July, 1999, 25 years after Michael's death, the same royal custom persists, with 9 executions in 4 days. Trinidad's prison commissioner, Cipriani Baptiste, told the press that the royal jail's gallows had been freshly oiled. But given that it's Her Majesty's courts, Her Majesty's prison service, Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary, Her Majesty's armed forces, Her Majesty's government, and taxes and subjects, being quite so inordinately majestic, could go to your head.
Several signings, ma'am. There's a couple of remissions. The first one is a very unusual one. This chap discovered something rather strange going on, and in fact he got 2 good marks, and so he's getting remissions even though he's got a fairly long list of offences himself.
I think anything to do with strange ways is rather interesting.
The Greek word Theotokos refers to the offspring of the gods.
Then the other one is a chap who helped out when there was obviously a riot of some kind.
Hemithoi is the Greek expression referring to a being that is half human and half dragon, no doubt the Theotokos progeny.
The National Canine Defence League, ma'am, they wondered if in honour of their centenary, you'd become patron of the charity as a whole. I have my doubts, ma'am, about adding to your 800-odd patronages.
National Canine Defence League.
I didn't know much about them, and I could find out a bit more if you thought it was worth it.
I think that'd be an excellent idea.
Prince Harry was sent to an Afghan war zone as political propaganda. Harry's bombs land on an area of Afghanistan in February 2008, and as Joint Terminal Attack Controller, Harry slaughters 34 Afghanis by using what's nicknamed Kill TV. He's then thought to have boasted of it in Bougie's nightclub. Codenamed Widow 67, Harry studies a regional map, pokes a finger at where the enemy's likely to be, then he instructs US aircrews to blast to smithereens, as if Afghan tribespeople were merely Norfolk pheasants.
What do you see as the biggest challenges in conservation?
The growing human population. Because if where we are, there's nothing else.
And do you have views about what should be done about that?
Can't you guess?
Predictable, given his fascist flavouring, Philip's no stranger to genocide. In the event that I'm reincarnated, Philip has said, I would like to return as a deadly virus, thinking his high-handed Carl would, in words, solve overpopulation.
At the basis of it all is this colossal increase in the human population. It's one of the living species of the planet, but it's reaching plague proportions.
Prince Otto, his younger brother, decided that the only way to keep his sanity while Ludwig was reigning was to shoot a peasant a day. So he shot them in the garden, then would wonder why his garden was overgrown. Catherine the Great locked up her hairdresser for over 3 years to stop him spreading the news she had dandruff. King Henry Christoph of northern Haiti liked forcing his royal guards to prove their loyalty by marching them off cliff tops, while Henry executed those who refused. Likewise, the Queen's sister, Princess Margaret, who was so royal that she'd sometimes answer the phone with the matchless phrase, "This is royalty speaking," as if expecting a long-distance curtsy. Huffley walked out of the film Schindler's List because she thought it was anti-German. The princess's views on any races or condition of men that differed from her own were distasteful. She told Chicago's mayor the Irish were pigs, all pigs, and as for India, she hated those little brown people. Princess Margaret would parrot the views of the Queen Mother, an unabashed supporter of white rule
Papers show the extent of the British colonial officers' involvement in employing the most cruel torture techniques against the Kenyans, including beating up and burning the revolutionaries alive, as well as severe sexual assaults and castration, which were used as the most regular and common torture techniques.
Queen Elizabeth cited only one of the most popular shows in the world, Game of Thrones, in her annual Christmas Day speech on Thursday.
Who came to the set of Game of Thrones?
The Queen.
Yes!
The more you view mainstream entertainment through the lens of discernment, the more you can see a pattern start to emerge. Whether it's predictive programming harnessing the power of collective consciousness, or simply a need for the creators to speak their truth, it seems that Hollywood spellcasters cannot resist the impulse to tell the story of their family origins, the story of their family tree.
Taylor also posted this pic with a pregnant friend backstage and described herself as, quote, mother of snakes.
How cool was it when the Queen of England visited the set of Game of Thrones?
While my tour of the set of Game of Thrones may have gained most attention,
the creators of Game of Thrones are subtly emphasizing reptilian fertility through the metaphorical character of Khaleesi and the constant declaring of her title, Mother of Dragons.
I, Daenerys of House Targaryen, first of my name, breaker of chains and mother of dragons.
Her fertility stands in stark contrast to her army, the Unsullied, an army of castrated, expendable servants.
The world hadn't seen a dragon in centuries until my children were born.
In the real world, the elite used incest to protect the dragon bloodlines, and they used eugenics to destroy the seed of their enemies. This is the real Game of Thrones.
But a democratic monarchy is an oxymoron, such as a knighthood, for example, for Norman Schwarzkopf, the US general who said Iraq's dead weren't worth counting. And another knighthood for Kissinger, a criminal, who swaggeringly proclaimed power was an aphrodisiac after he'd carpet-bombed Cambodia. Why should we flagellate ourselves, the dissembling Sir Henry likes to ask, for what the Cambodians did to each other? In the hard logic of war, what difference did it make if you shot your enemy or starved him to death? I want every Iraqi soldier bleeding from every orifice, General Schwarzkopf would sadistically announce, after which the Queen gave this ghoul her greatest honor. Other pillars of the American state join in the queue for awards, royalty-mongering specters of the US machine, Caspar Weinberger of the Iran-Contra drugs for arms affair, and Brent Scowcroft, Kissinger's gopher, and now Knights of the British Empire. For services to law enforcement, J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI, phone-tapped Martin Luther King for 10 years, is pleased to find himself similarly ennobled. This particular monarch is the beneficiary of dividends produced by an empire's corpse mountain, vast sums squirreled away without apology. It began with the royal namesake Elizabeth I licensing thieves to kit themselves out as predatory pirates for the purpose of raiding Spanish ships and plundering their contents, then bringing stolen gold to their pimping Gloriana.
It's time to board the pimp train with your conductor, Queen Elizabeth, in her gold room. Pimp!
Queen Elizabeth was spotted strolling down rows and rows of gold bullion in her stash house, the Bank of England. While her subjects, the citizens of England, Canada, Australia, Jamaica, the Bahamas, etc., work hard, she sits back and collects the revenue, and although she's worth trillions of dollars, she makes her subjects pay for the maintenance of the royals' family lavish lifestyle. Why?
'Cause she's a pimp!
As Britain became rich, it wished to expand using any pretext or deception to do so, such as declaring Ireland to be a barren wilderness so its inhabitants could be swept aside. As a result, royal favorites would receive tracts of land as plantations for Britain's cash crop, while the language and rights of the local population would be suppressed and killed off by the crown.
In Ireland, Dublin's Dean Swift was prompted to despair that 1/2 of all Irish rents is spent in England and is squeezed out of the blood and vitals of Irish tenants, who all live worse than any English beggar.
As Britain increased its appetites for luxuries further, it would extend its foreign possessions, therefore industrializing slavery as a solution.
The defenseless and vulnerable were hunted down and rounded up by bribery and terror, sold on to the middlemen who traded in forced labor to produce the empire's new necessities.
Back in 1905 in South Africa, in the Cullinan mine, a miner found 4 feet below the surface something glistening and realized that what he had picked out of the side of the mine with his penknife was in fact a 3,106 carat rough diamond.
And this one, known as the Imperial State Crown. This great diamond is a more recent addition. The first star of Africa is even bigger and is in the scepter.
Royal palaces, paid for with slavery's products, sugar, tobacco, rubber and tea, were built by England's own indentured labourers. King, emperors would then fill the palaces with the acolytes they'd ennobled, and all demanding to be treated like gods.
So Bruno Peake, who's the pageant master, presents the Jubilee Crystal Diamond to the Queen.
I just thought, since it's mainstream news right now, British royalty dined on human flesh, I thought I would just bring that up to you. But not so much even the dining on the human flesh. They like to split the head open and get the pituitary gland and eat it. It's the old-fashioned growth hormone. You know, the rich people today spend millions of dollars getting the scores of facelifts and Botox and liposuction and blood transfusions. And oh, yeah, but that's for the lower-level nouveau riche. The British royalty, they like to eat the pituitary gland. And it goes on in the article that it was medical. It was so they'd live longer. But they also enjoyed the dishes.
This is the white drawing room. Looks beautiful, doesn't it? Beautiful cabinet here, wonderful vase, gold candlesticks there, absolutely lovely. But if I just rather gently pull on this, you will see, I tell you, it takes a bit of muscle. Well, you must have more muscles than you realise. If you pull this open, you can see that actually behind this, there is a secret passage leading to the Queen's private apartments. Now, Anna, you're in charge of the Royal Collection here, aren't you? Why would the Queen need a secret door?
The dark side of the British Empire grew murkier still, thanks to its late Victorian holocausts, in which 30 million died through the engineered famines that lasted 20 years in the Indian subcontinent. Due to the Empire's use of state-backed forced labour, a further 4 million died in Bengal's famine, thanks to a meanness that was built into imperial policy of refusing food to a feckless poor who'd breed.
And the gold, is it real gold?
It's gilded, yes, so layers of real gold.
Serial megadeaths. There were thousands more victims in Malaya and Africa, in British-owned mines and plantations. Men, women, and children had their lives cut short, killed or maimed.
I'm at Buckingham Palace and I'm here to see the exhibition called Diamonds, a Jubilee Celebration, which shows for the first time many of the Queen's own jewels as well as those from the Royal Collection.
Diamonds have been deployed by monarchs and other rulers over the centuries as visible symbols of wealth, power and status. So we are in an exceptional year. We're celebrating Her Majesty the Queen's Diamond Jubilee.
In the Grecian mysteries, treasure implies intellectual riches such as sacred or occult knowledge, and thus it is said, a dragon guards treasure.
The concentration camp was a British invention under Queen Victoria in the Boer War, and in her Indian camps, Her Majesty's officers would conduct proto-Nazi experiments. They were to see how few calories Indian coolies needed and still be able to perform hard labour.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. There are over 1 million objects in the Royal Collection, so there's always something new to find out about. 8,000 paintings. So, everywhere you look, there's beautiful, amazing historic objects.
In the 1920s and early 30s, Mohandas Gandhi was enemy number one to Britain's King Emperor, whom Churchill advised will sooner or later have to be grappled with and finally crushed. Thus, if you factor in the suppression of Mau Mau and the castration of the Kenyan landless, plus the Aden killings of the 1960s, if you factor in the decapitation of so-called bandits by Royal Marine commandos in Perak, and the bombing of Malaya during the so-called emergency, 4 centuries of this yields a body count of millions, while the benefit from such imperialist corpse-making has been enriching royal bank accounts. It's added multiple zeros to royal names or to their nominees at Coots Bank or Rothschilds or at Barings. In exchange, royalty swans past, waving with lofty serenity, while it pretends that none of this happened. During the Raj, in the Punjab city of Amritsar, Britain's local Panjandrum, a Brigadier General Reginald Dyer, issued 2 orders. One ordered all the Indians using the main street to crawl its entire length on their hands and knees, and the other authorized a public whipping for citizens of Amritsar who should find themselves within a lathi length of a British policeman. A protesting crowd gathered in Jallianwala Bagh, Amritsar's park, on April 13, 1919, where they listened to the testimony of victims, all of them unarmed and peaceable.
To take their anger.
Torture dungeons, mass executions, mass raping, slavery, death and destruction. And that's why I call the Queen of England a disgusting demon. That's why I pull her down.
Should we issue a warning, sir?
We're told that she's this sweet old lady. She is the progeny.
They've had their warning.
Of European elite. And if you don't believe me, just search the term royalty bloodbaths. There's a reason they call it bloodthirsty. All these terms have a root. Transylvanian royalty, German royalty, French royalty, Dutch royalty. And it's a secret process they reportedly still engage in, but as early as just 60, 70 years ago, it was on record that they would bathe, women especially, in the blood of children. And we know who these folks are. See, it's not that they're smarter or even better than us. It's that they're willing to do things that normal people wouldn't do. They're very sick, they're very degenerate, they're very mentally ill, and they lust for power and control. They think war and death is beautiful. And they're trying to now sell the general public on death and torture and murder and sadomasochism to turn our civilization into something that resembles the world they want. They want to bring all this out in the open. And that's what all the Lady Gaga, vampirism, and all that's about for our young girls. That's what the record suicides are about, and little girls cutting themselves up. Parents just turn themselves over to absolute, total evil.
Queen Elizabeth II, head of state of the United Kingdom and 31 other states and territories. She is the legal owner of about 6,600 million acres of land. That's 1/6 of the Earth's non-ocean surface. She is the only person on Earth who owns whole countries and who owns countries that are not her own domestic territory. This land ownership is separate from her role as head of state and is different from other monarchies where no such claim is made. The value of her landholding, $17 trillion. That's approximately.
What I'm trying to say to you right now is that they are creating the structure. They're creating the structure of a totalitarian one world government.
Across the massive plains and sands of the Saudi Arabia desert, something truly amazing is taking place. A once parched land, void of vegetation, is now covered in green grass, purple flowers, and massive pools of water. The land is literally being transformed into a garden right before our eyes. And what makes this event even more miraculous is that all of this was foretold by the prophet Isaiah thousands of years ago.
Chapter 35. The desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it will burst into bloom. It will rejoice greatly and shout for joy. The glory of Lebanon will be given to it, the splendor of Carmel and Sharon. They will see the glory of the Lord, the splendor of our God. Strengthen the feeble hands, steady the knees that give way. Say to those with fearful hearts, be strong, do not fear, your God will come. He will come with vengeance, with divine retribution he will come to save you. Then will the eyes of the blind be opened, the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then will the lame leap like a deer, and the mute tongue shout for joy. Water will gush forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. The burning sand will become a pool, the thirsty ground bubbling springs. In the haunts where jackals once lay, grass and reeds and papyrus will grow. And a highway will be there. It will be called the way of holiness. The unclean will not journey on it. It will be for those who walk in that way. Wicked fools will not go about on it. No lion will be there, nor will any ferocious beast get up on it. They will not be found there. But only the redeemed will walk there, and the ransomed of the Lord will return. They will enter Zion with singing. Everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them, and sorrow and sighing will flee away.
This is one of the many signs that have been occurring, marking the season of great redemption, awakening, and revival, but also of judgment and justice. The dragon's rulership is finally coming to an end. Hallelujah.
For ye are all the children of God by faith in Jesus Christ.
Praise your holy name.
For as many of you as have been baptized into Christ have put on Christ.
There is neither Jew nor Greek.
There is neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female. For ye are all one in Christ Jesus.
Hallelujah.
And if ye be Christ's, then are ye Abraham's seed, and heirs according to the promise.
Even in these bloodline families, God can reach down and save souls and do some amazing things.
Dear Heavenly Father, praise your holy and righteous name. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Amen. Thank you, Lord. Praise your holy and righteous name. Thank you. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Amen. Thank you for watching. We hope you found this video informative. My husband and I started this channel to share the good news of salvation found in Jesus Christ and to expose the satanic hidden agendas in today's society. As many of you may know, YouTube has been demonetizing and suppressing videos that go against the mainstream's indoctrination. We want to continue as a couple rooted in Christ to share the knowledge and truth that we have gathered to all our brothers and sisters in Christ and to those seeking to find Him. Currently, my husband and I have been working in our spare time to create these videos, and we believe that with extra time, we can create even more powerful and exciting content that could be shared to help bring people to the truth. Help us continue to expose the truth and spread the word of God by supporting us on Patreon or by submitting a one-time donation via PayPal. We truly appreciate all our Patreon supporters and the PayPal donations we have received so far, as well as our subscribers who have purchased t-shirts from our shop Apparel, which feature faith-based t-shirts for men, women, and children. If you would like to support us, the links are in the description below. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.